It's such a treat to welcome Susie Ibarra, who will be central to the Ojai Festival as a composer and percussionist. Susie, thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really delighted and honored to join you all in Ojai.
And I know as we are speaking, you're home in Berlin at the moment, which is an unusual location for you. Tell us, tell us what's taken you there and what projects you're involved in while you're in Berlin.
Yes, well, I guess a fellowship with the DAAD artists in Berlin and music and sound brought me to Germany and Berlin, and kind of an extraordinary community of collaborating, focusing on my sound research and also on composition. So it's been um, it's been really productive time, I think, to be here at this moment and for example, the Nest Box I wrote over here.
Let's jump back for a minute as some of our audience meets you for the first time and talk about origins. Your family is from the Philippines, but you were born in the US. What's your early geography?
Yes, my family is from Manila, and I was born actually in Orange County. Yeah, I was born in California, and then I did my grade school in Houston, and I spent a long time living, especially my adulthood, in New York, both in New York City and also just above, even if we say upstate New York, not truly upstate, but like hour and 40, hour and a half in New Paltz in the Hudson Valley.
So you've been surrounded by nice nature for a lot of your life, right?
Yeah, I think it's kind of subtle what we have as a childhood, our experiences, and how these early experiences impact our lives continually, and how that affects the new experiences that we have as we grow as adults. And I do think that a lot of my childhood experiences have impacted uh, the kind of natural environment and how I think about and live in natural environments, and also the natural environment in our urban and built environments. And I just have to say also, I was really delighted and honored to be invited to also play at Ojai Anea Lockwood's Bayou Born piece for Pauline Oliveros, that Claire and Anea were arranging for this unique ensemble. And having also both known Pauline Oliveros from originally meeting in California, but we have Houston in common. I grew up along these bayous. So I also have a bit of a full circle childhood that I um, return to a little bit of that which is very specific um, kinds of river systems that move through the city and also out into the suburbs and the rural areas. Here in Berlin, they have a very long river. It's called the Spree, and up no, just south of it an hour is the Spreewald, the Spree Forest, and an area which will also right along the river, which will have a lot of birds coming in very soon right now. But it also, while it's different, it is a bog. And I think about that also. Um, Interesting, just interesting the different natural environments and how we might gravitate to them, as well as I think of our larger ocean bodies, and which we have, so wild and big, the Pacific, right, as well as the Atlantic, and um, seeing that from different continents and stuff has been interesting.
And what about sort of the musical environment that surrounded you as you grew up in California and Houston and then through college in New York, et cetera? What were some of the formative musical surroundings that stuck, that helped shape you? and the moment in which you realize that music is your life.
Oh, wow. Um, I started music when I was 3. My family is all played instruments. My mother put me in piano very young, and then I sung in choirs. I didn't start playing percussion till I was a teenager. And then I also played drum set as a teenager, but I also played piano and organ in church.
Mm.
And then I would play in high school. I played drums in like punk bands, and somehow it balanced. And I was also a visual artist in Houston. I came in for my schooling in New York. I came up as a visual artist,
Mm.
and and I always did both. And then I think it was as a teenager um, in New York, I realized, oh wow, I really I feel it's quite easy to express myself through the musical medium, and that it's still very visual. I think the process of writing scores, not necessarily always what comes out in the end, but for sure in the process, there's a lot of visual side. And now for me, later in my life, the materiality of the sound is also very physical and visual alongside with the audio side. So that always stayed with me. I went to school in both Sarah Lawrence College and Mannes College of Music. Yeah. So and then I also, it was a time in New York City. I love to play percussion. I had a wonderful time, difficult time, but also wonderful time. Like I got to play a lot of different percussion ensembles and study with a lot of teachers directly, not even just from in school, because of the magnitude of the culture in New York for performing arts, for live music also. And that I think was really fortunate. It was so mainstream.
Mhm.
It was just so mainstream and and accessible for in my generation for young artists. It was so accessible, and that might be part of the reason why it shifted in that way. I mean, early on, before I came to New York, I was out in Parsons in LA as a visual artist. So it's something that's always stayed with me. Um, but that was early on. I guess also my parents, we were in a Philippine community, so we would often. It was this in the Gulf. It was Houston, Fort Worth, and New Orleans, and there would be sometimes these tours of Philippine choirs that would come through the
Mm.
communities. So we would always be part of the community that was hosting these choirs to come in and artists, and so that was, I think, very fortunate for me. And I first saw like Philippine Kulintang gongs in my uncle's house, and I didn't know how to play them or what they were, but I was very intrigued by them. Yeah, um, and then later I would start to play in several gong ensembles. I played Philippine Kulintang, I played Balinese and Javanese gamelan in um, in New York, and then later I would go on to study in Manila and stuff, and then also down in the Southern Island in Mindanao with the lot of the family legacy of one of my dear mentors who's now passed on, Danolan Kalanduyan. And that was very formative. I mean, I think early on in New York, I mean, I had a few opportunities if I wanted to actually move in that direction to uh, more seriously study in Southeast Asia at the time. I was playing so much percussion, I had to really focus it because and say, okay, I can play all of this, but not at the same time, and I should, take step by step because it is always another instrument. Even though if we're playing percussion, each instrument takes so much practice and so much time, and um, so yeah, I had to figure out how was that path going to lay out for me because you can't do it all at the same time. there's so much rigor behind all of it and a lot to take in and think about, and the musicality and the body memory of the performer side of music. So much body memory on that side. Um, yeah, so that's a little bit of it.
You've mentioned obviously the presence of Philippine music traditions in your life. In one of the big pieces that will be central at Ojai, Sky Islands, the physical landscape of the Philippines also is very much evoked and present. It's a piece. I had the privilege of hearing an early version of it in New York at the Asia Society. It's a piece for Claire Chase for flute, for Alex Pei, pianist, yourself and Levi Lorenzo playing percussion and traditional Philippine instruments as well, and a string quartet, which in Ojai will be the Jack Quartet. Could you tell us sort of the genesis of Sky Islands? What are the Sky Islands? Where are they? And how did they help give shape to the music that emerged?
Yes, sure. Well, Sky Islands, they only exist in a few parts of the world. And so one of the places is in the northern island, Luzon, in the Philippines. And they are the high mountain, altitude rainforests. So they really are up in the clouds. And it's interesting. I was always curious because people would say, we feel like up there, evolution speeds up because we have at least 50 species that grow here of different animals that only exist in this high altitude area. And, obviously less humans there. And the kind of biodiversity in both the flora and the fauna of sort of very precious space and rare, and not so many of them. And what does that mean? Like these spaces are very important as our planet evolves and the climate is changing. It's really important for all of us, these places. But I also felt they're, metaphorically really magical. What the sound of that, and having also one of my practices to record in forest, record trees, or record also certain resonances in caves and stuff, and then of course recording water. I still feel whether I'm in that research practice of listening or if I transform that and come to the magical page of the score or the magical stage of performing it, it's still it gives that there's so much sound to explore and be inspired by.
Um, I think I'll let everybody in on a wonderful piece of your research for Ojai. I had the pleasure of putting you in touch with Tom Maloney at the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, because two of Susie's pieces will be featured in a very special environment on early Sunday morning in the Ojai Meadows Preserve, which is one of the beautiful properties managed and really shepherded and stewarded by the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy. But you actually, as part of your research, asked to know about specific birds in Ojai, right? And
Yes,
the
I
bird
when
songs and
mhm.
that also led to a brand new piece you're writing for Ojai called Nest Box, which will be on the Sunday morning 10:30 concert. So talk to us about this integration of your research into your writing.
Yes, I've always really loved bird songs. I think it's something that is kind of natural for many musicians, many composers, perform many musicians. It's something that really lends itself. Also, as a percussionist, I feel they're one of the oldest drummers.
Hmm.
They've been around so long, and I do feel that rhythm, pitch, melody, harmony, we have been playing their songs a long time. I think about that often because I also research and transcribe bird songs. but some of the birds that Tom had said are in the preserve are Cassie's kingbird, the California towhee, house finch, the house wren, and Bewick's wren. Those are a couple that are actually inspiring in the new piece Nest Box with virtuoso Wu Wei on Sheng, and I will play this in duo in also dedication to Steve Schick. And also part of that, the idea of naming it Nest Box, it is a place that nurtures these birds. And I felt that even though, well, I'll reword that. I felt that be very appropriate in dedication, of this symbolically of what a nest box is. But also, a nest box, you might have a pendulum that keeps out certain birds, what can be in some, like who's going to come in, who's going to go out, and that whole playfulness. So Wu Wei and I are going to play a very playfulness of what that habitat is, and these kinds of, taking on these birds as roles and moving in and out. That's a lot what this piece is scored and inspired by, and particularly by the bird songs from the preserve. I'm very excited to be out in the preserve for the first time also. And there'll be two other bird songs. One of the bird songs, Sunbird, which I wrote solo for Claire. She's arranging for 4 woodwinds. And I'm excited to hear that. And then I will also play Colibri, which is a Philippine hummingbird. And I think they're very similar birds, sunbird and the hummingbird, but they're different families, because the sunbird is more in the nectar family of birds. And the hummingbirds are, one of the interesting things about hummingbirds is I think they're one of the few, if not only, birds that can fly backwards. They have these different motions and stuff, and that deals a lot with how the movement of that piece is, and dictates how motifs will move. But these small birds, they're really, I'm enamored by them. Yeah, they're beautiful and essential. So yes, we will play them early in the morning. Yeah, and then Wu Wei's, we will also play them, I think, on the morning program, right? On another morning. So I think that's kind of appropriate. All the birds are coming out in the morning. Yeah.
Susie, one last question. You talked about the collaboration with Wu Wei. Wu Wei is the fantastic sheng player, which is the Chinese mouth organ. If our listeners don't know the instrument, imagine sort of a harmonica as a pipe organ, and that begins to give you some idea. And I know this was a relatively new encounter. It's a match made in because
Really a new encounter. Yes,
you and Wu Wei, and I
yes.
know that the two of you have had a chance to meet,
Yes.
just work together. Tell us a little about that process and how, in a way, it fed the writing of the piece.
Oh, yes. Well, he also just came back from China when I first met him, and he's like, here's the composer sheng. So I got to come home with a composer sheng. Well, that's obviously very clumsy, but I think I understood, why it's essential for him to have us explore that and feel this 37 reed instrument, and was so generous to demonstrate many of the techniques, and has written quite a few books and taught on the instrument, so which is pretty profound, especially in China. There's like volumes, of how from the legacy of his teachers and what his teaching is on that. So it's very helpful to see that, and also just a tremendous organ is definitely a great way to describe it in a way, because I actually live now in a country that has a lot of organ instruments, and I just also wrote a large work that had pipe organ. So it was a
Hmm.
time of listening to reeds, these different reeds, and it is very similar because his command of the instrument, the facility of so much different sound and technique that can come out of that just this instrument. You have to also heat it up on the bottom. It's like you have tea, heat that up, you do this, so on. And they're black bamboo. When you all come out to listen, you'll see it. It's beautiful. Each of them come out, you know. I was just kind of floored by the technique. I mean, Claire did say, "Oh, Wu Wei can play anything," and if Claire said that, I said, "Oh, okay." So, um, yeah, yeah, we're getting ready to. We're just sorting our schedules out even before we come. We're so lucky because we're in Berlin, even though she's traveling a lot. But we're sorting that, so we should have some rehearsals even before we have rehearsals in Ojai.
Well, there's so much to look forward to, including Nest Box, this new piece written for Ojai for the Chinese sheng and percussion. Susie, we could talk for much longer, and I hope we will when we're together. But I just wanted to thank you for the generosity of your music making, your spirit, and the collaboration that you're bringing to everything. It's just a treat to be with you, and thanks for this time.
Oh, thank you, Ara. I'm really, really honored and really looking forward to being with you all in Ojai and all of this extraordinary music.